welcome. I am so excited for Morytania. Yes, it does look really strong. Yes, I'm in danger of calling every area OP. I'm excited every time I get into one of these, but let's jump into it. Let's see what's going on with Morytania. In terms of the shops, there's nothing particularly crazy about Morytania shops. You do pick up a hide tanner in Canifis, as well as Rufus's meat shop sells a singular raw shark, so that can be really helpful for cooking. And Mostly Harmless, you're gonna get a rapier from one of the pirates, equivalent of a ruined scimitar. So if you end up picking Morytania as like your first region, that might be helpful to you. Plus you've got some more raw fish to help kind of fill some of the gaps if you want to just go straight to 99 cooking. And then moving towards Port Phasmatis, you've got Alice's farm on the way, which is a farm shop. Pretty helpful. While you can technically get all of the supplies that you need from any of the gardeners that overlook any of the patches, it is kind of a pain in the butt. So it can be helpful to be able to buy those things in bulk if you want them. And then actually going into the port, you have got Samurai Dude. I don't remember his name. He sells Carol crossbow bolts, so if you end up getting that as a weapon, you don't have to worry about farming barrows over and over in order to get them. You can just buy them from this guy. And since you're going to be in the port near the Ectofunctus, which we'll talk about in a second, just keep in mind that you do have charter ships here. It is fairly close to a bank, and you can buy buckets of slime, so you don't have to be running the basement in order to get those. You can just buy them from the charter ship. But truthfully, you're probably not picking Morytania for the shop specifically. So in terms of the skilling options, there is quite a bit that's starting to open up for you. You do get the Canifis agility a little bit early on, really good for marks of grace if that's something that you care about. And then later, once you get access to Darkmire, you're gonna get the Hollowed Sepulchre. Now, spoiler, the Ring of Endurance is kind of useless. You know, run energy is essentially infinite in leagues, so you're not really going to get any use out of that. But the Hollowed Sepulchre does give pretty good supplies. You can also get, you get like a lot of bolts, a lot of ruins, decent amounts of alkables. So that is a good skilling option. And personally, I like the Hallowed Sepulchre more than I like rooftop agility courses most days. So can be a nice change of pace if you're looking for something like that. You can fish raw shark in Bergdorant. There's a ton of spots just all along the southern coast. You are also going to be picking up a Slayer Master. Now, he is kind of a low-level Slayer Master. I want to say 20 combat, and he's not going to give a lot of Slayer points. So unless there's a relic or a combat mastery that kind of evens out all of the Slayer Masters, it may not be the one that you want to use. But if there is that, he is in a decent location. I mean, I like him more than I like the starter area Slayer Master, just because he's a little bit easier to get to, and especially if they end up not doing last recall or doing like a scaling system with last recall where there's a certain cooldown in order for you to be able to use it, then this guy might be a good one to just be able to run back to relatively quickly. Moving back up here towards the top, we have got the Ectofunctus. So this is going to be, of the regions, this is going to be the first one where we actually have a good prayer training method. Gonna give you a huge boost per bone, and you're gonna need those tokens anyway, because one of the perks of doing the Morytania diaries is getting the Bone Crusher, which is gonna be charged through the tokens that you get from using the Ectofunctus. Bear that one in mind. You are at least gonna stop here for a little bit. Maybe you get like 70 or 80 prayer on this thing. It's gonna be super quick, because remember, League's XP rates are gonna be boosted, so it's gonna be really good, especially to just kind of boost your prayer up, get those protection prayers early. And of course, going into Darkmire again, we have got buyers, which you can pickpocket, pretty good cash, and also going to give you blood shards, which are going to help you make the Blood Fury. I think the Blood Fury is always a really fun item. I mean, not just in leagues, in the main game too. Being able to just heal back as you do damage is always just like, it's just really fun. And especially in leagues where you're just that much more powerful, it's just going to increase the effectiveness of this thing. And they'll typically have some sort of like life steal kind of thing going on in the relics. But if you have access to the Blood Fury, you may not have to pick that. So it may open up some choices for you. And that's also something worth keeping in mind when you're thinking about these different region choices. Of course, on the rune crafting side in Darkmire, you can get the Dayal Essence. You're also going to get access to the Blood Altar, which is going to be really good for just just getting this skill out of the way. Truthfully, unless you, I don't like rune crafting. Blood ruins, they're good, they're useful. Dayalt Essence just gives you more XP per rune, so really, you can't go wrong with this. You also get the, what is it, like the blood bark tree? Blisterwood? That's what it is, Blisterwood. So another kind of AFK woodcutting method. Not necessarily anything crazy with that one, but it is there for you if you like it. You are getting your first full farming patch next to Alice's farm, and you're also getting an additional herb and allotment patch on Harmony Island. So this is the first area where you can actually like reasonably train farming to some extent, especially early on when you're probably not going to have a lot of tree seeds and things for the patches in like the starter area, for example. And the last thing that I've got on here, this relates over to the Shades of Morton, being able to burn shade remains. Really good fire making XP, pretty decent prayer XP as well. It's also going to have a bunch of other rewards tied in with that, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But because there is such a wide range of shades that you can burn, I mean, you can do this at any level, really, so long as you have access to the logs that you need in order to burn the given shade. All right, so mobs and activities, what are we going to get to do around Morytania? Well, it's going to be a lot of Slayer. Honestly, this is probably like Slayer Central over here in Morytania, because not only do you pick up the Black Mask at Cave Horrors, which is going to give you a boost in damage whenever you're doing Slayer, but you also pick up just an absolute ton of Slayer creatures. I don't have all of them listed out here, but you know, obviously you get like the Slayer Tower, which has a bunch of stuff. Not to mention, you know, some of the other creatures in the area are also Slayer related. You know, when you go through, you get like the Bloodvelds in the tunnel, you get the Araxites in the little spider cave. So there's a lot of stuff just littered around Morytania that is related to Slayer. I've put a couple of the notable ones up here just so you can kind of see some of the drops that you're going to be getting. You've got like Ruined Boots from Necreals. You've got a Granite Maul here coming in from the Gargoyles. Herbs, Herb Seeds, all really good from Aberrant Specters. And then, of course, the Araxites, which are new. You can get the Arania Boots, which are pretty good hybrid boots. And then you also get the little like Venom Sacks if you need a cure for poison or venom. Looking back at the shades, so one of the big things that come from burning shades, you get keys so you can open these chests that are in the Shades of Morton, like crypt area, and you can get a Barrows amulet out of this, which is equivalent to a glory. And while you might be saying like, hey, a glory isn't that good, you know, I've already got access to the Blood Fury, but the Barrows amulet, the reason that people call it that is it gives extra bonuses when you wear full sets of the Barrows armor. So we'll circle back and talk about some of those bonuses in a little bit, but just know that it is going to be really good, and you're probably going to be using this even in the end game despite having the Blood Fury, because there's going to be some situations where this ends up being better. Speaking of the Blood Fury, if you aren't into pickpocketing, you can AFK the Fire Sentinels and get Blood Furies through that way. Depending on the areas that you pick, you may not have a ton of prayer bonus, but at least you'll have monk robes from the starter area, plus the Blisterwood Flail gives a lot of prayer as well, so you'll still be able to AFK these for, you know, 3-5 minutes probably, if not more, with, you know, if they do some sort of relic related to prayer as well. The last thing here that I want to call out is temple trekking. Now, we are all Iron Men. Sometimes it is a pain in the butt to get supplies, and temple trekking is actually really good, really quick to be able to just kind of like plow through for a number of things. You just run the easy route with the easiest NPC, skip all of the interactions that you can, and you can pick up quite a few of the reward certificates every hour. Now, there are a spread of things that you can get from this. Watermelon seeds in particular might be really helpful for you in terms of training your farming up, and there's also the random skill tomes, which give a variety of skill XP. Agility is in that mix, along with woodcutting, Slayer, and a couple other skills. So this minigame is definitely something worth keeping an eye on, both early and later. I mean, once you finish the Morytania hard diary and you get a teleport to Bergdarat, this is going to be all the better for it, just because if you run into something that you can't do or you don't want to do while you're doing those runs, you just teleport back to Bergdarat and you try again. So really good method for certain supplies. Definitely check that one out if you do end up taking Morytania. Now for the bosses. There's not a crazy number of bosses in Morytania, but you are picking up a raid, and raids are going to be just so big this year because they each are going to drop the big 3 weapons. So not only are you getting the scythe in this raid, but you're also going to be able to pick up a twisted bow and a Tumican shadow. Bando, plus all of the normal drops that you're used to in the raid. So the tank armor, Justiciar, the different weapons like the Sanguinesti staff, the Grazi rapier, all of that is going to be coming from this raid. Probably not my favorite raid of the three because it's somewhere between pain in the butt and impossible to solo it. But at least with leagues, you know, you've got a lot of superpowers coming with you, so you can probably get away with that, and there are going to be people in Morytania that you can group up with, so if you need to find people, you're welcome to check my friends chat, join the Discord, or you can also check the official league's Discord because there's an entire Morytania section there, so that way you can connect over with people. The other bosses in the area, you've got the Pisani's Nightmare, which drops some really good melee stuff. The Inquisitor armor actually gives very good strength bonus, more than Bando's, and while its defenses aren't good, you probably won't need a lot in the way of defense in leagues because you're going to be so powerful. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you end up skipping Asgarnia, this armor can definitely fill that spot for you. Of course, you've also got the new boss, Araxor, which drops the whatever halberd? Venomous halberd? Gosh dang, man, what is this thing called? Noxious halberd. Professional YouTuber here, which is going to be a interesting addition to all of the weapons in the area because it is the strongest halberd in the game, so you can hit really hard with it. It's got that reach of 2 spaces, so you might be able to do some fun like safe spotting kind of stuff. Plus it's got a bit of an interesting special where if you're poisoned or venomed, it will cure you and then that damage gets added to your next hit. Now within Morytania, it's a little bit difficult to pick up venom. You'd have to pick it up from the Araxites or Araxor and then go and do something, so I don't know how useful that special will actually be, but that could be something fun to play around with. And then of course you've got the Amulet of Rancor, which is the upgrade to the Amulet of Torture. Best in slot melee, so while it will take another area choice in order to make that thing, it would be a very powerful pickup. And the last boss, of course, the classic one, Barrows. And I've got this question mark on here because out of the bosses that are in this area, I think they're gonna make the Echo boss Barrows. This is me totally just speculating on this, but Araxor is very new. I don't think they're gonna empower the raids any. And then Pisani's Nightmare tends to be a very long kill with like certain mechanics. Plus there's already a hard mode for it. So I think Barrows is the best bet in terms of what Echo boss is gonna be in this region. Now, as to what it might drop, it's a little hard to say. We haven't seen enough from the other teasers to know exactly what their design philosophy is in terms of like, do they want to balance out the region with a weapon to kind of like pick up for the region's weakness, or do they want to lean more heavily into the region's strengths? And this region is particularly strong with melee, so I could see them doing something like a one-handed slash weapon that's equivalent to best in slot because you already get the Grazi rapier and the Inquisitor's mace, which are stab and crush, but you also get the scythe, which is slash, so I'm not 100% sure on that. Probably the weakest section in this region is range, so maybe they do like a best in slot range weapon to help kind of balance that out. But again, we'll just have to see. Only time will tell. If nothing else, you are going to get all of the Barrow sets, which are very good actually just by themselves. Not only as like kind of a mid-game supplement, but some of these, I mean, they carry some value even into the late game. How on earth could I forget the grotesque Guardians? Okay, in my defense, probably the most forgettable boss. I don't do this one. Slayer boss, but whatever. Okay, it's here. Talk about it briefly. So none of the drops are going to be super impactful, but you do get cannonball upgrades if you have a cannon. You get the granite gloves. Still probably better off going with the regen bracelet, but gives you a different option. The ring is a nice little pickup, a little bit of extra defense bonuses. You got the granite hammer. Doesn't really do much for you. And then the black tourmaline core. This one allows you to upgrade Bando's boots into Guardian boots, which can then also be upgraded into Echo boots. So like this drop in this area by itself doesn't really do anything for you, but if you end up picking up Asgarnia and Barlamore together, then you can make the Guardian boots and the Echo boots respectively. Now, if you see this gear missing in the next few tabs, it is because I completely forgot. What can you do? At least none of these drops are like super important. But anyway, all right, to the gear. So let's talk gear. There's a ton. There is so much gear. Oh my God, dude, like the melee gear, I mean, you can see it. Look at all this stuff. I had to change how I put this little slide together just because there's so much of it. So you do get the Barrows equipment, and something that's really cool is when you pair it with the Barrows amulet. So just as a quick shout out to what this does with each of the different sets that are shown here, you've got Darox, where it adds a chance to recoil damage back. You've got Guthans, which lets you overheal by 10. And then you've got Barracks, which gets a +7 prayer boost on top of all of the other prayer bonus that's already existing within the set. So in certain situations, this is going to be better than a Blood Fury. Now, good things maybe not, just because the Blood Fury lets you heal anyway, so like getting the overheal isn't quite as important, but that is definitely something to keep in mind as you're kind of trying to figure out what it is that you want to do. You are also picking up a couple of spec weapons fairly early on. You've got the Granite Mace, if you want to do like quick hits on something, if there's maybe a relic that lets you beef up your special attack, that could be really good. You're also getting the Barrel Chest Anchor, which is kind of like a discount Dragon Warhammer special. It does reduce stats, so if you end up not having any other area that gives you a stat reducing weapon, this is actually going to be really good. Got a couple of accessories listed out here as well. The Ruined Boots are new, and I also put Bronze Gloves in here. Now, while no area is going to give you Barrow's Gloves just off the bat, Morytania is one that picks up a part of the Recipe for Disaster quest and gives you access to the Coalmancer's chest. So if you're trying to get some better gloves, this is one of the areas that you can look to. Currently, I don't think it's possible with 3 region choices to get all the way up to Barrow's Gloves, but that is something that they are potentially looking at for this year. So keep an eye on that. They may make it possible to get the Barrow's Gloves if you pick, 2 or 3 regions that give you access to the RFD chest. Now, on the sort of like late game armor side, you've got Full Justiciar, best tank armor in the game. Can do some fun things with that, especially if they give us some interesting relic or mastery combinations that involve like tankiness. And then you've got the Inquisitor's armor, and while the Inquisitor's armor isn't that tanky, it does give a lot of strength bonus. So I anticipate if you've only got Morytania, this is going to be the armor set that you stick with through to the end of the game. Plus, you've got all of these different weapons that I've mentioned before. You've got best in slot Crush, best in slot Stab, best Halberd, best vampire killing weapon. Do I get to say that? And then, of course, you got the Scythe. So melee is looking really strong in this region. Now, if you do want to make the Amulet of Rancor, you're going to need Kandarin. The only real benefit I can say of taking this area for you is you'll also get Piety. So it's not just a total loss if you're going for the Amulet of Rancor. And for Asgarnia, if you want to take advantage of the Defender upgrade that you can get from Theater of Blood, you're going to have to take Asgarnia for the Dragon Defender. It is what it is. A little bit unfortunate there, but if you do take Asgarnia, at least you could also theoretically pick up Torva, which would be best in slot melee for the strength bonus, so something to bear in mind. But I will say, in general, Morytania, it really is a nicely encapsulated area. Like, you could not take either of these and be totally fine with what's here. Now on to range, which again, I think is probably the weakest in the area. Because you pick up a Hide Tanner early on, you're able to more easily make yourself some armor, so you can expect to get things like Black D Hide just a little bit sooner. Truthfully, with Barrows being weak to air spells now, though, you may not even need this. I mean, you might just skip this entirely, go to Barrows with some air spells, and pick up Carols super early. But regardless of what you pick, you do get access to Carols later into the game. And with the Barrows Amulet, this actually could be pretty decent. The effect that it gives for Carols is you have a chance to do a double shot with the crossbow. So especially if they do some sort of like attack speed buff, then this is gonna be at least a very interesting weapon. It's kind of similar to the blowpipe. Generally, it's a little bit worse, but with that double hit, maybe could be pretty decent. I think it'll be a lot of fun if nothing else. Plus, you're gonna get access to the Twisted Bow through the raid, so that's also something that really kind of helps bolster the range gear in this region. Now, the last little bit here, we've got Mage. I've got a little mention of the Imbued Heart up here, just because you're picking up so many Slayer creatures that it's become a lot easier compared to, say, like in the starter region. But for the armor, I have got a soft spot for Split Bark. I think Split Bark is cool, okay? I mean, it's been useless since the beginning of time, but like, Split Bark, it looks cool, all right? It looks cool. It's more mage armor than you have in the starting area, so if you do pick this first, I mean, it's not like the easiest thing to get to, but you are getting the ability to make Split Bark armor, and it's cool, man. Make some Split Bark armor, enjoy that. You can also upgrade it into the Blood Bark armor. Now, you won't get the full use out of the Blood Bark unless you take the Desert for Ancients, but Blood Bark does give percentage magic bonus, So it is worth the upgrade. Even if you don't have Ancients, it's going to be better than Split Bark. But of course, kind of your final mage gear is going to be Arims. Arims and Blood Bark give the same % magic bonus since the rework. The 3 main pieces each give a +1%, but Arims has better magic stats, better defensive bonuses, so you will use Arims. I mean, there's just no way around it. And of course, the effect with the Barrow's Amulet. It allows you to auto-cast Ancient Magics, which, I mean, I guess that's something. If you take the desert, I guess it's something. But the other side of it is it gives you a chance of having your combat spells deal 30% more, which, especially with some of the combat spell weaknesses, elemental weaknesses, you're gonna be hitting crazy, dude. 30% more on top of, like, you know, the giant mole is like 50% or 100% weak to water spells, right? So you get like 30% on top of that. That can really boost your damage up. Now, in terms of the weapons, you know, obviously you get Aram Staff for the full set. You're also gonna get the Volatile Staff eventually from Phazani's Nightmare, and that one has a really high hitting special attack. I think out of the 3, that one's probably going to be the coolest. There is the staff that lets you like regenerate your prayer as part of the special, which might be helpful if you're doing something like the Inferno. But really, I'm personally most excited about the Volatile Staff in this region, just because that special attack hits so high. And then you couple that with like the elemental weaknesses and combat masteries, relics, whatever. Like, you're gonna be hitting crazy numbers, honestly. give me above 100 on the special. I could see it. I believe it. And then you're also gonna be able to pick up the Sanguinesti Staff if you want to have that as kind of like charge staff, be able to heal yourself a little bit, and the Tumikin Shadow, both of those coming from the raid. So honestly, gear-wise, Morytania is crazy good. I think, especially because it's so encapsulated, there's not a lot of things where like you have to pick multiple regions with it in order to get the full benefits out of the stuff. You can just pick Morytania standalone and you get a swath of gear. You get something for every combat style. You're gonna be feeling pretty good. But anyway, we got tasks. Still got tasks. Got the breakdown from last year in terms of what the tasks were looking like. 10 easy, 28 medium, 31 hard, 27 elite, and 6 master. And in terms of kind of like the focuses that you're gonna be looking for, they're probably gonna be things like Theater of Blood KC, Theater of Blood hard mode KC. Of course, you've got the other bosses as well. So you've got like Phazani's, Barrows, Theater of Blood, all of those combat achievements. Probably gonna be some Sepulchre time tasks as well. You know, being able to complete the different floors, being able to complete the floors in a certain time frame. And then boy, oh boy, are you getting rare equipment tasks, man. I mean, you got like Inquisitors, Justiciars, the Nightmare Staff, the Scythe, all the weapons, the Blood Fury. I mean, it's going to be a lot of rare equipment tasks. Any of that gear, any of it, that's going to be a task. Plus, with the addition of Araxor, you'll probably have like an Araxor KC task, Araxor combat achievements, its drops as well as rare equipment tasks. So you've got like the Noxious Halberd, the Amulet of Rancor, things like that. And that is it for Morytania. Man, I'm excited for Morytania. I'm going to be doing more deep dives, more leaks content, so make sure to subscribe if you want to see that. We do have a Discord. I've got that linked in the description along with the official Leagues Discord, since I mentioned that before as well. And I am going to be streaming the day that Leagues drop, so I've got that time up there for you, as well as some of my Leagues progress a little bit later into the season. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.